Welcome to the second webinar, exclusive webinar for the Android beginners, scholarship students. We're super happy to be here with you again today. We know it's been kind of an eventful day, but we just want to take this time to remind you that there's a lot of things that you could be doing after the scholarship program, no matter whether you decide to continue learning with Android or just apply the skills that you've already learned in your current position. There is really like a million different possibilities for you after this course. So I'm really, really happy that today we are with Trinh and James, all the way from California. One of them in San Francisco and the other one in Mountain View. And the reason why they're here is because both of them, in their own way, knows quite a lot about what it's like either to wonder how you can apply Android in your career after Udacity, or just simply know a lot about Android and careers in Android. So they're really the expert today. I'm just here to introduce, and I'll say bye at the end. The way this webinar is going to go is pretty much the same way that we did it last time. So we'll start with selected questions. So all of you guys who registered for the webinar entered questions. And we'll go through a couple of selected ones that we think are representative of the questions that you guys asked. And then in the second part of this webinar, we'll have a live chat. So what that means is you can just post your question on the live chat on YouTube at the end of this webinar in the second half hour. And we'll go through all of your questions and we'll select a couple of ones, and then Trinh and James will do their best to answer. So without further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And I wish you all a very good webinar.
Okay, I can introduce myself first. My name is Trinh Nguyen, and I'm a program coordinator for Udacity. I've always been a part, like my professional experience has always been about education and non-traditional education. I used to work in a lot of after-school programs. I actually used to work in Spain, so I have not Germany, but kind of European work experience. Before I joined Udacity, I was a consultant for employers, tech employers, who were looking to hire people who came from non-traditional programs like Udacity, like Coursera. They were companies looking to recruit more people, and they couldn't do it from the traditional graduate from a university. So instead, they were looking for other ways, and I worked with them for that. Now I'm on the other side in that I work with students who are looking to be hired by those companies. And so I've been at Udacity for almost 2 years, and I've worked with students all over the world, including in Europe, Africa, Asia, South America. So it's really great to see like everyone kind of figure out their own career path in those different countries.
Cool. And I'm James Williams. I'm the Android curriculum lead here at Udacity. I've been at Udacity, actually, I just celebrated my 3 years anniversary at Udacity. I kind of come from a traditional background. I have undergraduate degrees in computer science and, weirdly enough, French. And I just got a master's degree in computer science. But one of the things that isn't so typical is I graduated Udacity. I graduated from college in the middle of a recession. So a lot of the jobs that were available at that time were like 5 years experienced for someone who just graduated. So I ended up taking jobs outside of tech first, and then found ways to work in technology and programming into my day-to-day job before I was eventually able to transition over to a full-time eng job. So.
Okay, so let's start with our questions. One of our first questions is, what are the career opportunities for beginners? I'm sure many of you are wondering that. I'm going to tell you that it's kind of complicated because it's kind of just opportunities where you yourself make it for you. I'm going to actually tell you some stories. So bear with me. So depending on your background, there are different opportunities for you. So let's say that you are currently a web developer. If you happen to, work for a really great employer who is, willing to let you grow into new things, kind of if you pick up some, kind of like the first half of Android skills, like not enough to maybe be hired at a different company, but due to your experience and the employer's trust in you, they might be willing to kind of hire you to an Android role in that company based on what you could do, because you've shown them promise before. For Nanodegree graduates who have not come from this experience, like have no development work, their only coding experience is from Udacity and like the personal projects they have, they tend to pursue kind of contract freelance roles to build up their portfolio, to build up work examples. There are a lot of students who actually do only do Udacity and jump to a job. And like all of these paths are like available to you, and there's not necessarily one that works. Like for a beginner, your main concern is how to get your foot in the door, how to break into the industry and get the title, you know, Android developer, junior Android developer on your resume. And it could come through a variety of ways, whether it's a freelance role or a junior dev role. So you just wanna.
Yeah, you pretty much said it all. Get in where you fit in. Try and make opportunities for yourself and see ways that you can expand out, because it's always easier to make a lateral move within a workplace than to do a full job. So one of our early graduates, Kelly, and I'm blanking on her last name, but she was in a non-tech job at Google, and after doing the front-end Nanodegree, I believe, she ended up moving into a developer position. So that's kind of a way where, you know, you can make it easier for yourself. And the next question is, I would like some opinions about the first steps as an Android developer, common misconceptions, what to expect, stuff like that, from Alexandru. And I'm just going to stop there so I don't mess up your name. Common misconceptions is that there is one definitive answer to anything. Pretty much, there are lots of different choices that you can make as far as like different design patterns for an app or different libraries that you can use. So, and each have their own benefits and disadvantages. So coming into this process, you know, I think a lot of beginners are like, well, what is the one path? What are the exact things I need to know? And there's not really an exact answer to that. It kind of just all depends on your situation. What to expect, that if you stop learning, you will become obsolete, because you're not really, Android developer really isn't a like destination. It's kind of like a state of being or whatever. So like I'm still constantly learning stuff and reading blogs and Medium posts and stuff like that. So like if you expect to stop learning, you're in the wrong field.
I would obviously definitely agree with James, and I would also stress the importance of there are steps to your career growth. I think a common misconception is that you'll finish, let's say you finish the Android Nanodegree program, and then you're kind of just set for not for life, but you've achieved it, you've gotten the job. But I think, like, especially for you, this audience, like you chose to proactively pursue an education outside of the norm. So you like challenges, and in your career, when you have that I want a challenge mindset, you're gonna want to pursue roles that you're not qualified for, and like the only way that you will get there is if you actually pursue them and just continue revisiting what you know and continue learning more and more until you get there. And then by the time you get there, there's probably a second or third or fourth challenge that you want to fight for.
Cool. And actually, we just got another question that kind of is in the same kind of strain, so I want to address that. What additional things should I know to increase my chances on the labor market? How to be attractive to a potential employer? The first things, I think it's what Trinh and I were saying about, you know, you've started on a journey, don't stop. And so yeah, I just wanted to hit that real quick. Sorry, Trinh.
No, for sure. So I'll move on to the next question, which goes back to my original question, which are the common entry-level developer jobs, like at big companies. And I think James will probably may have more to say about this too. So again, it depends. It depends on how the engineering team is structured. I would say at Udacity, for example, for a long time, we only had like one Android engineer on our team. So I think obviously they were part of a bigger engineering team, but it was kind of like a solitary experience. Now we have more, so they're more likely to collaborate on building Udacity's Android app. I will talk about how I work with engineers. I work a lot with wanting to ship new features, new products to our student base. So I work with usually a product manager and an engineering manager who manages the engineers to kind of make my argument for why engineering resources should be dedicated to this product. And then the engineering manager and product manager and I, the four of us, work together to try to figure out what the project should look like, and usually on the day-to-day of the development. I'm gonna send it to James. There's multiple parts to this question, but maybe we can tackle it one at a time about kind of what it's like to be a developer and what are the tasks.
The tasks are pretty much the things that you do in your projects at Udacity, because that's kind of the goal of it. I guess things outside of those would be, depending on how big your organization is, you might have a designer or designers that you're working with to try and translate their vision into things that are actually possible. And depending on how big the organization is, you might do some back-end work with web services and things like that, which are coming up in the later projects in Android Basics. I want to say News App, which I don't know if you guys have done that yet, but I know you will do it. But that's one where you interact with the Guardian newspaper API to like display articles and stuff. So there are some places where you might do something like that, where in addition to just interacting with it, you might be doing some work on that backend service to define new endpoints or whatever.
And alongside that too, I just wanted to put in one thing, that when I work with engineers, it's a lot of times I see a bug and I want it fixed. So kind of they troubleshoot a lot of issues, not just in like the development of building your product, but obviously maintaining it afterward. So I'm going to move on to the second part of this question, which is about what are entry-level developer salaries in, I assume, in Europe. So I will say two things. Like one, you being Europeans and knowing your big continent, you know that it depends on which area you're in. That's true for any area, including in the US. I would say that kind of the block for an entry-level role, let's say you graduate from the Android developer Nanodegree, and you pursue a job you find on a job board, depending on the area, it can range from about 30,000 to 60,000 euros. And that doesn't mean that like anything, like that's it. It just means that happens to be reported average. Unfortunately, salary data, employers usually don't report on that. So you have to trust it from people who are willing to state their salary, tell you their salary, which is also, not a lot of people are comfortable doing that. Udacity students who have elected to report their salaries after graduating from the Nanodegree tends to be around 45,000 euros. But again, that's just the number that has come to us. I will say something that is, I think, really true in tech is that it's a competitive industry. So even if you enter with one salary, it's easier for you to get raises per year. Like either one, your employer wants to keep you, so they will give you a higher raise, or two, after you spend a year at a company, you have like evidence and you have a case to go to another company and ask for a higher salary. So I definitely see that. Like I have worked in different industries where the salary rate, for example, I used to work in education, not tech related. It was like very slow. You could be working 10 years and not see like more than like a 5% increase in your salary. But in tech, because they want to keep you or because you're attractive to another company, they're willing to pay more. So it's easy for you to kind of jump year after year.
I got nothing to add to that. I think that, okay, we already talked about this next question. The next one is you, the one with which resources, but I'll read it since you've had that long explanation. Which resources could we use to take the next step towards an Android developer certifications? And are certifications power enough to get a job? That is a big question. Okay, the first part is shameless plug, all the resources on udacity.com, because all of our courses, our Android courses, are available free online. There are a couple of newsletters related around Android that I personally use. One is called Android Weekly. Another is Android Developer Digest. And we'll figure out how to get you those links later on. What else? A lot of conferences live stream their content. So like Google I/O live streams a lot of stuff. Devox, which is a Java-related conference, which started in Europe, but it's expanded to several places around the world, is another one that they record all the sessions. And if you ever get the chance to go to Devox Belgium, it is awesome. Yeah, conferences, open source, like reading other people's projects, and just make sure you don't use their code unless you like attribute it if you're submitting for Udacity. Yeah, that's pretty much that one. And
so I have also another take on this. So because we all obviously would love to see you graduate from Android Basics and then go on to the Android Developer Nanodegree program. And the reason why, outside of it being a Udacity program, is because at the end of the Android Developer Nanodegree, you have a capstone project where you work on just building something. Obviously, there are specifications to it, but it's you choose, you design, and you implement it. A lot of our students have been able to get that app that they build into the Google Play Store. So I think from now until, hopefully then, I would just read about Android development, read about why mobile apps are important, read about like whether you are interested in creating something for a nonprofit or for a business, for a bank, for whatever. Just read more about it to know like why would something I create be important in this space. And then as you develop your Android skills, you have kind of like context. So let's say you learn these set of skills, you start thinking about how, let's say if you work in healthcare, how you can make an app with the skills you learn to help hospitals, to help, whatever. Because I think the most powerful thing you can do for yourself, other than obviously continuing learning, is to have this, is to have an app that that really showcases what you're passionate about, because you'll be able to talk about it, you'll want to return to it and improve on it, and to an employer, that is probably one of the most valuable things. Our director of engineering, he used to work at LinkedIn also. When he and I talk, like he loves seeing, the portfolio and the skills, but the most important thing to him is actually seeing one project that like you really committed a lot of effort into, and that like for engineers in the day-to-day, they tend to revisit the same projects, you know, releasing one version and maybe next year releasing a second version. You know, with your apps on your phone, you always see updates. So to an employer, it's really impressive, not that you just like create a product that works, but that you continue to come and revisit it and like make it relevant and make it user-friendly over and over again. So I know that's like, that maybe seem like a long path from now, but you know, I think start thinking about it now. So by the time you get there to work on, you know, your capstone, you kind of have all of this information, and it will kind of be hopefully easier for you to build it. You want to say anything about that, James, or else I'll move to the next question.
Yeah, having your own projects is good. I would caveat about the capstone project is just one thing that people tend to do sometimes is to kind of obsess over making it perfect. There is, especially when you're starting off, there does eventually become a time when you have learned as much as you're going to learn from that specific project, and the best thing to do might be to either look at it from a different viewpoint, maybe talk to, you know, your friends or whoever is a target of this app and see what things are useful, or find a new challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So that kind of also answers this question about, are certificates powerful enough to get a job? It depends on what the certificate represents. We work with students who graduate from top universities with computer science degrees who don't have really a portfolio. They learn, you know, the theory, the skills, but they necessarily never applied the skills depending on their university program. And even that degree is not enough. It depends on, like, certificates kind of gives credibility to what you've learned, but you still also need to have, you know, experiences, projects to make yourself like a really powerful candidate. So my next question is about the selection process for a job as a developer at a big company. So this also varies because companies are always trying to do new things and be like really innovative in how they hire. A lot of companies kind of stick it to traditional, like you do a phone screening, you do a technical take-home exercise, and then usually every company actually will bring you in for an in-person interview. That's around 4, maybe even longer hours, where you meet with different teams. You may do coding challenges on a whiteboard. In our Android Developer Nanodegree, we have a mock interview course that I think James is a part of, where we walk you through, no, never mind, where we walk you what an interview would actually look like if you were applying to an Android developer role. But then there's also other companies who, they want to try something different. So maybe they'll bring you in with like a group of people. I know that seems like really out there, but people want to do out there things. Like, tech is an innovation space, not just in the actual tech, but in how people do human resources stuff with hiring and keeping their employees happy. So I would say, but the selection process usually is, depending on the company, they might put your resume or CV through this this algorithm that picks up keywords. So let's say, for example, you're applying to an Android developer role, but nowhere on your CV it says Java, then they're not gonna pick you. So that's how they do like the first weeding of people who apply. After that, if their human resources department is really great, then they are going to try to read as many applications as they can. Timing matters. If you were one of the first applicants, it is more likely it'll be read than if you were a later applicant. If you were referred by someone, that's almost a guarantee that your application will be at least read. And from there on, it depends on how many people they want to phone interview. It depends on the capacity of the person conducting the phone interview. If they have the space and the interest to let's say, interview 10 people, then they will do that. But if not, then it might be 2 people. It might be they do it 1 person at a time. It just depends on like the actual workload of the person. But usually, I would say, there's a combo of people who would who need to hire immediately, so they hire immediately. But I think generally employers really want to invest in good candidates. So they take the time to know you. That's why they bring you into a long in-person interview. Like even I don't have a technical role at Udacity, but my interview was still almost 5 hours. So they really care about that in tech. And they may bring you back. And so it's a long process. I will also kind of caveat that like Udacity sometimes hires in a week, and we sometimes hire in like months. So if you don't hear from an employer for a couple of weeks, it doesn't necessarily mean anything that is important to you. It just means like maybe the person who's in charge of hiring, they're just so tired maybe that they haven't yet gotten to all the resumes. So just like, coming in that like kind of be open to anything. And if you are sure of yourself and sure of your skills and why you're interested in the company, like every step, like whatever they ask of you, you'll be able to kind of fulfill that and just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah. Trinh gave a pretty good outline of that. One thing that I would like to highlight, again, we'll figure out at the end how to get you these links. One website called HackerRank allows you to do programming problems starting from all levels of like very, very easy stuff of like, determine if something is even or odd up to kind of very complicated algorithms that will give you some insight into some of the technical we'll have. And when you're a little bit further, possibly like when you're getting to the later points of Android Nanodegree, shameless plug, there's another site called interviewing.io that allows you to practice interviewing with engineers from big companies like Google, Facebook, Twitch, Microsoft, and it's all anonymous. So you can kind of mess up and they kind of give you an evaluation afterwards of like, these are things I think you need to work on. These are things that you did well, sort of stuff. So yeah, that sort of things.
Okay, great. Our next question is what recruiters look for in a CV. So there are a lot of resources online about this, which we can send to you. So I won't get into obviously like the finer grains of it, but they're looking to see why they should hire you. They are not necessarily looking for every single detail of your life. And the distinction between that is that I can obviously summarize my professional life, on a piece of paper. But if I was applying to Udacity, I would have to recreate that CV to be focused on tech and to be focused on education, because that's what Udacity is about. So you wouldn't submit the same CV for Udacity that you would for, let's say, just a company like Netflix or a media company necessarily. It doesn't mean these CVs have to be completely different. It just means you look at it and think, if I was, an employer for this exact company, do I have the skill, like, do I message, do I communicate what they're looking for? And we, like the Android Developer Nanodegree, which we consider a career-ready Nanodegree, it has a resume review, which you could do. It is US focused, but what I think transcends, country standards when it comes to CVs and resumes is that this project will help you write your job descriptions and project descriptions focused on your actions and your results. And results don't have to be like a percentage, like I gained 80% more viewers or whatever. It could just be kind of what you learned from it. Like a great result is actually like improving efficiency. A great result is figuring out you were doing something incorrectly and then you stopped doing it, so you're not wasting time. Those are like the things that recruiters want to see, because not only does it show that you really are, like, you know how to work with these tools, you know how to develop, you know the process, but you're also showcasing that you know how to function in situations at work itself where things will happen that like you have no control over, and how you deal with it. And then there's a next question I'll just answer really quickly. Are there enough jobs for this many Android developers? Yes, coming into kind of this field, I almost doubted it because but working with students, they've been able to find opportunity anywhere. And if like in incredibly rural areas, in countries that I didn't, I kind of used to make the joke that, not a joke, but like there's demand in certain areas, but not demand in others. But I found that's completely false. We have students literally from almost every country in the world, and many of them have been able to find jobs where you wouldn't expect it, in-person jobs. And for those that, you know, kind of are having a difficult time finding an in-person job, there's a lot of remote opportunities. And a lot of people sometimes, when they reevaluate what they're looking for, they've also been able to like move to different areas too.
Yep. I was going to answer that. Yes, there are billions of Android devices in the world. Next question is, oh yeah, I actually wanted to answer this one. Is taking a new life path with a programming career only reserved for young people and person that is and should a person that's older than 30, close to 40, forget about it? Basically, is it too late? Too late is dead. Like, there are going to be challenges that you might have to deal with, both that are inside your control and outside your control. For example, a introductory salary might not be what you need if you have a wife or a spouse and independent children or parents to take care of. There might be a bit of culture shock if you go from a work environment where you might be working with mostly older people that are your same age, and then come into a job place where you're working with a bunch of 20-year-olds. And you know, that kind of happens on both sides. But if you're determined to make it happen, you can find a way to make it happen, be it by introducing, you know, mobile technology or new technology into the current place that you work, figuring out some sort of, you know, idea niche that you can make an app to service, you know, and it also depends on what your background was going into kind of learning Android, because like, so one of the things I know, so I mentioned earlier that I have an undergraduate degree in French. I speak French kind of semi-fluently. And the thing that I've noticed when I've tried to learn Spanish is that it's so much easier because I already have a base of French. And the same has worked with programming languages and technology in general. Because I have a basis of how stuff works in general, I can say, oh, this is like this other thing that I know, sort of deal. So, I mean, that's a way that as an older person, you can probably bring perspective to the situation and not have to, like, you know, beat your head, you know, against the table. You would have like a life of references, be they in tech, be they in engineering or like regular science. Like, for instance, we have at Udacity, one of our current engineering team people he majored in physics in college, taught high school physics and science using video games to teach like gravity and physics stuff, which is kind of awesome. Became a content developer and learned a bunch of web programming. So basically used all of his science knowledge to learn web programming, and now he's on our engineering team. So yeah.
Okay, great. And then it looks like right now, with the time we have left, we're going to move on to live questions. So we're excited to hear what you're thinking of. First one comes from Michael, who asked, at which stage of learning can we start looking for a job? What skills are needed to get started as an Android developer? So right now, as we understand it, you are halfway through the Android Basics Nanodegree. So I will kind of going back to my first question about which career opportunities are available. For us, we really do think you need to finish Android Basics and the Android Developer Nanodegree to the skills that you need, the experience working on the portfolio to look for jobs. We've had a lot of students who got jobs before they graduated from the Android Developer Nanodegree. They're kind of like in the middle of it, toward the end. These students have usually had some other programming experience, and they're kind of able just to make an argument that although they don't have all the Android skills right now, because of kind of what James says, because I'm already good at this one aspect, I can become good at another. And others have just kind of found their own opportunity. Like they came from a background unrelated to tech, but they just happened to meet someone. They happened to just find this opportunity, and they just kind of not argued, but they kind of just like continued to promote themselves until they were able to attain the opportunity. There are a lot of people willing to hire learners based on what they could do and not necessarily what they have done, depending on the promise they show.
Cool. Yeah, that answered it. The next question is from Macchiato. Thanks. Is it also worth learning iOS down the road to be bilingual in Java and Swift? It depends. There are some, like the gap between iOS design and Android design is getting smaller, but there are key differences when it comes to architecture and like how an app is made, how an app looks and works in different sort of design principles that guide a user through an app. So I would say especially if you're an Android Basic student, do not worry about that right now, because it probably would confuse you with the context switching, because that's kind of like something that they say in language learning as well. You shouldn't be starting two languages at the same time. Get a good basis in one and then move on to the second one. So I would apply that same thing to Java / Android, is get a good basis in this. And then once you feel you're at a decent level, it will only make iOS more interesting and easier if you choose to go in that direction.
And I'll read this next question for James also. Gabriel asks, I have a few questions. The first, what are the primary differences between Java and, I guess,
Enterprise Edition, EE.
And Java used in Android development? And is it difficult to be a developer in both areas?
No, it isn't difficult to be a developer in both areas. I mean, primary differences is just the platform that you're working on. If you're doing server-side Java, you are just working mainly on servers and, excuse me, you're working mainly on servers and moving around information that way. And sometimes there's like a front-end web component to it, depending on how the organization is separated. But I wouldn't say that it's so different from the Java that you use on Android, just that you're doing stuff at a larger scale. And what project in Android Basics? I just finished Android Basics as a student in December, so I'm trying to think of a project. There is a inventory project. Yeah, there's an inventory project that in one of the later parts of the program that you have to be able to add inventory items and take them out and order new inventory and sell it and stuff like that. That's kind of in a very kind of small encapsulated way. That's the type of things that you would be doing for, like, you know, if you were doing server-side Java, is just, you know, generating and managing data on large websites to be served to users using like web browsers or even Android apps through some, you know, web service. And okay, I will read the next one from Rank 13. I want the knowledge to become an Android developer and extremely happy with that alone, but I would also know what kind of leverage does Nanodegree have when searching for employment? Trinh.
All right, I can answer that. So for Android basics, like Anais and her team are doing, you know, amazing things for you guys like this. I think you're in a career week. Udacity's services for careers focuses on career ready Nanodegrees. You know, we don't want to tell you you're ready to look for a job if we don't think industry-wise you have the skill set yet. So the Android Developer Nanodegree, which comes after Android Basics, has those career services. So we can send a link, actually, you know, afterward with all of the resources James mentioned and a link to our services. So I'll quickly go over kind of what's in your classroom. We provide personalized reviews of your portfolio. We provide personalized feedback on how you answer interview questions. And I think the most important thing, and probably what you're most interested in, is what we do with employers. So we have kind of different ways that we work with employers. The one way is that if the student agrees to have their student profile, which includes their projects, their interests, like what they're looking for in a job, if the student elects to turn that on publicly, recruiters who signed up through Udacity Talent Source can just look through them. And we've had a lot of students be hired just from that alone. A recruiter wants to hire Udacity students and graduates, so they just go through our database and search for the right candidates. We've also had Udacity only opportunities where, and it's actually been throughout the world. Notable ones have been in India, Japan, and the US, and we're just growing. But where an employer, you know, has promised, I want to hire 20 Udacity interns in the next 2 years. And so it's like a regular application where you can expect at this certain time there will be this opportunity that you can apply to. And the great thing about this is that you usually compete with like hundreds of people for a job, but with these roles you only compete with Udacity, your fellow peers, and those numbers tend to be a lot lower because, you know, not everyone is interested in every single job. So you may be competing with only like 10 people sometimes. There was one time for a role, there were only 4 applicants, so you had, you know, a 25% chance of being hired. And then kind of the new thing we're rolling out, which you may have heard about, are really stronger relationships with our hiring partners. We have this thing called Apply Through Udacity. So right now we have it for a bunch of Nanodegrees. I even think there is one Android role at the moment on there. But it's through our hiring partners, who are all over the world, who want to fast track Udacity applicants. So you apply through Udacity, and the employer kind of has like a promise that they'll read your application, that they'll consider you. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll be interviewed or that you'll be hired, but that you have an advantage over other people who are applying. Europe-wise, I know we're hiring, like those roles are in Toulouse, in France, in London. I think we have a couple of Germany, but like this is just, it changes often. It just, the nature of hiring is that your needs change often. So what you see today for Apply at Udacity may be different next month and the month after. So just kind of, but that, like we are just strengthening and offering more partnerships. Like last year we didn't have any really of these Apply at Udacity roles, and now we have dozens. So we only want to see that grow at that same rate. Okay, the next question is from Wainua, who asks, can I use Android and systems engineering together? Can I get something from these two?
Sure. I mean, I don't have a background in systems engineering, but I would say generically that you can use Android with pretty much any field. I know that some of our the Made with Udacity on Twitter thingies, one person used it for calculating your carbon footprint, and then another app was teaching students like letters and arithmetic and stuff like that. So I would say, as opposed to asking us, can you use it? Figure out how you can. Like, make that be a challenge for yourself to, say, I want to combine my love of Android and this other thing. This is how I'm going to make the best of both worlds. And Michael asks, is it important to have your own project repository on GitHub or a similar platform? Should we write our own application and show it to the recruiter? So this kind of basically falls back into the same line of the things that Trinh was saying. Basically, the first thing that most people are going to do when they see your resume is they're going to Google you and see what comes up. So having some sort of digital presence, be it GitHub, be it blogging or something like that, is going to be helpful to you, just because it allows them to sort of dig into what you're interested in. And I've had interesting I've had interviews in the past where someone saw something I posted and then they asked me about that specific post. It was like, well, how did you come to this conclusion, and what did you feel about that, and what were other things that so having some sort of digital presence gives you a way to be interesting, and people are fickle, so you never know what about your application is gonna catch that person's eye. Sometimes it could be that you're from the same city, or you went to the same high school, or you're interested in some weird comic that they are. Not saying you should put everything on your resume, but I'm just saying there is always something. So yeah.
And I just have a note about the second part of that question, whether you should show it during the interview or to the recruiters. So if you're at a networking event, you should talk about it. But if in an interview, the employer will ask you, what have you recently worked on? What's a project you're really proud of? And that's when you want to talk about it, and you want to be able to talk about multiple facets of your project. And they might even just ask you about it. I was on your GitHub and I saw this. Can you tell me about it? And if for some reason they don't ask that, it may mean that you haven't yet advertised it enough on your CV or on your online presence. So you may want to do that also. So our next question is from Udroid, who asks, how can I step into project management for Android apps from a project management career? I think, so I am kind of pursuing, okay, so I think it's kind of similar to what you would ask for a product manager. Obviously, because I see so our product managers at Udacity come from all different types of backgrounds. Some of them are able to code, some of them aren't able to code. There are other aspects of product management that's outside of just knowing the technical skills. But if you're already a project manager, knowing what let's say your engineers would go through only makes you a better candidate. I would say a lot of people have gone through the path that you're talking about right now, and that a really great resource is to just go on Medium, the blog kind of platform, and just read people's stories to see how they did it. And so yeah, neither of us are product managers, although I guess maybe you're in, so we don't quite know. Our next question is from Victor, who asks, what aspects would you say you would need to be able to apply to a more senior role as an Android developer?
More experience, things we outlined before. Just it's kind of hard to like. Okay, so yeah, so experience, reading, learning, go to meetups if you have them. Go to smaller conferences that might be around you. Like I know in Europe, there are a lot of DroidCon events that are moderately affordable. I think they're like 100 to 200 euros. But those will give you a place to like both like interact with other developers, learn. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because everything is so depending on the conditions of that specific job. So it's hard to give you like a definitive list of you must, if you do these things, you will like be able to apply or ready to apply. So, and the last question from Jose, as a programmer, can I work at a job outside my living area? For example, I wanted to travel on a caravan. Do you think I could work offline and upload my project when I have access to internet? Yes and no. So there are some companies that are 100% remote where they don't have a physical office. So that would be a possibility, but generally as a starting developer, you don't have a lot of leeway. Like you usually don't have the opportunity to see a job that is for being in the office every day or mostly every day and suddenly say to them, I want to work remote. Like usually the company will have it in their job qualifications or listing of whether they'll accept remote work. So yeah, as far as like your kind of extreme example of traveling on a caravan and then uploading when you have internet, that would take probably more experience than you are at this point. Going back to Trin's earlier point about salaries and stuff like that, if you have proved yourself invaluable enough that they will give you more leeway to do things, then that would be a situation. But you shouldn't expect that you can just be on vacation for 20 days out of the month starting out. That will be something that you need to work up to. And
yeah, that was our last question. We're very glad to be able to talk to you over this chat/video platform. I am very excited to see you continue on into your Udacity career. Like, you will see me again if you join the Android developer Nanodegree. So I don't know how long that will take, but I hope to see you soon.
Yep, and same here. Hopefully you come to Android, where you can see stuff that me and my colleagues have made. And I will hand you back over to Anais, and we'll coordinate with her to get you out those links and stuff that we mentioned.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm really, really happy that you could all join. And I just want to say a huge thank you to James and Trinh. I think this was really a helpful and informative session. And I can see from the live chat that the students think so. So thank you guys for participating. As we said, we will coordinate to give you all the links and resources that we talked about. One thing that we will most likely do is that we will update the description of the video. So don't worry if you missed some of the video or if you would like to see it again later. It will all be online on YouTube, so this link is not going to change, and we will update the description and you can find all the resources in there. We'll also send you a follow-up email So don't you worry, you will have plenty of things. And as we mentioned in the video, Udacity has tons and tons and tons of resources, whether you want to continue learning or whether you want to get some help to get your career started. So this is just the beginning, and I really hope that we will see you later in a Nanodegree or somewhere else. Thank you for joining, and have a wonderful evening.